quad tour. So if that's what you're supposed to be, you're in the right place, Redbirds. We're just getting everybody in from the waiting room. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are excited to see this presentation about our historic quad. You're in for a treat, Redbirds. See the numbers going up. I see some familiar names. Denise Williams, hello. Aaron Link, thanks for joining us. Jess Ray. Casey Rader, hey. So glad to see everybody. We're gonna get started here with in just a minute. Welcome, Redbirds. I love watching this number go up. Thanks for joining us. This is our highest attendance for our registration for our homecoming event. This is the #1 event this week, so we are so excited. Hi, Susan. It's great to see you. We had over 170 folks register for tonight, so we expect a very large crowd. Welcome, Redbirds. We're going to get started just here in a minute. I'll give it just a little bit more. The number's still going up. All right, happy homecoming, Redbirds. My name is Stephanie Duquesne. I'm a director here in Alumni Engagement, Illinois State University. I'm excited to be here tonight. I wanted to go through just a couple housekeeping things. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from Barb Dallinger and April Anderson-Zorn. They're going to walk us through this historic tour of our precious quad. If you have questions, please throw them in the Q&A. At the end of their presentation, I'm going to pop back in and I'm going to make sure to get those questions answered for you. So don't be shy. Throw those questions in the Q&A and feel free to chat with each other in the chats. I know we've got a lot of Redbirds on here, so throw in what year you graduated, where you're from. I did a quick look, and I think that we have almost every single state represented on this call tonight. So that's exciting. So let us know where you're from. When did you graduate? It'll be a great night. So thank you for being here. I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to introduce our first panelist. We have Barb Dallinger. Barb Dallinger is a Central Illinois native. She received both her bachelor's in music education and master's of science in education in college student personnel administration from Illinois State University. Employed by Illinois State for the last 30 years, she has worked in both the College of Fine Arts and various positions in the Division of Student Affairs, including University Housing Services, Campus Dining Services, the Bone Student Center, and Braden Auditorium. She is currently the Associate Director for Events and Catering with Event Management, Dining, and Hospitality. Her achievements include being named Advisor of the Year, receiving the Distinguished Service Award, the Women in Communication Innovation Award, the Neil R. Gamsky Quality of Student Life Award. Barb's one constant has been the passion and dedication she brings to each job and the enjoyment she has received working with our students. Everybody welcome Barb. Thank you, Barb, for being here. Go Redbirds. Our next panelist is April Anderson-Zorn. April is the first university archivist for Illinois State University. Anderson-Zorn earned her master's degree in library and information science from Florida State University and in history from the University of Central Florida. She is a certified archivist through the Academy of Certified Archivists and holds a digital archive specialist certificate through the Society of American Archivists. Oh, that's a hard one. Anderson-Zorn has also worked as an archives consultant, partnering with a number of academic institutions and companies to help set up their archives program. So everybody, please welcome April and Barb. I'm going to hand it over to you two, and I'm looking forward to a virtual walk through our quad.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? We see the numbers are going up. We're really excited to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, Barb, do you have anything you want to kick off with while I get the presentation up and running?
Well, I am looking through the names here and sending out some info center and welcome desk love to my Joe Barta and Casey Rader, who are here. Bless your little hearts. Jess Ray, I'm thinking you could almost do this for us, but we're glad to have you here anyway. So we're very excited to be doing this tonight. There, oh, look at the names coming in. This is us. Carmen is here. Yay.
Sorry, give me 1 second, Barb. You're doing great.
So keep talking. Okay. Well, we are very excited to have everybody here and put on some little history here for you. There we go.
I think we might have it now.
I'm looking.
Sorry, it's giving me a little bit of trouble. Of course, you know, it's technology.
Oh,
Technology is always going to give me trouble. So anyway, so we are here. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Here's the start of our historic quad tour. Now, look, we want to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, this is we're not on the quad. we're virtual, but this might work in our favor. We get to be at home in our PJs and our couches watching this from our computers or from our screens on our phones. I mean, you get to sit comfy and cozy as much as we want to be here on the quad as well. Look, we're going to do this again. So this is something that's very popular and we're going to do this again for sure.
We can show old pictures.
Hey, and that's it. Thank you for reminding me, Barb. And this, we never get to do kind of some of the things we're going to do tonight. We get to show all of you some of these photos of even inside the building, back when the buildings were first constructed, late 1800s, early 1900s. So you get to see something that even the tour groups that we've had in the past have not gotten to see. So I think it's pretty exciting, frankly. We know that we're not going to hit all these buildings because Barb and I like to talk. So we're not going to get to all of these buildings. If we don't get to your favorite building, we just ask a question and we'll try to pop that in toward the end of the presentation. And as Stephanie said, your question box is at the bottom. So feel free, use that thing, put her to work. We'll get your questions answered at the end.
Aww, who brought the gondolas? Amen.
Oh, I want a gondola.
Wow.
So let's get started. Oh, by the way, look, this is cheesy and it's meant to be cheesy. So we're going to teleport to each. I've decided that we're going to teleport to each building. So because we're not walking, we're going to teleport. It's going to be this cheesy teleport every time we go to a building. So I'll kick it off with Bone Student Center. Here is Bone Student Center. We are standing outside of Bone Student Center. For those of you that don't know, this building was opened in 1973. This was a building that was first conceived and thought of by Dr. Bone as sort of an extension from the existing student union that we know as Old Union today, which we'll talk about Old Union. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about that in the presentation. But this building was constructed late 60s, early 70s is when they broke ground and started to construct this building. And Illinois being Illinois, we had grand plans for what this was going to entail, but we didn't have the money. Originally, there was going to be a hotel. There was going to be an ice skating rink. The bowling and billiards was going to be in the building. So instead of the secondary building that's next to it, that was going to be in the building. But of course, early 70s, funding wasn't there and we didn't get to do that. But the building was still constructed and opened in 1973. Go for it, Barb.
The biggest, there's Crock and Roll, yay. The biggest change that they made, Braden Auditorium was originally going to be a hotel. So it was going to be a place where you could come and visit campus and actually stay on campus. But then President Braden himself decided that they would much rather have a large meeting space instead. So we have Braden Auditorium now instead, which I'm quite glad.
You'll see here some of these pictures that we're flipping through right now. This is the bookstore that used to be in the Bone Student Center. And off in that sort of back left corner, that's what the Cage Dining Center, and we'll talk about the Cage actually in a couple of iterations of the Cage. This is when the Cage moved to the Bone Student Center, and it's kind of back. You can kind of see the little cage looking things back in that corner, some of that decorations back there. And this is
his name?
right.
Oh,
Barb and I
yeah.
have a love of this space. For those of you that don't know, my husband and I are both theater nerds, and we come from the theater. And I have pictures of this space being constructed, and it's some of the most beautiful photography I think in all of the campus is the construction of the space. So, if you're ever interested,
That is
please,
very cool.
yeah, let me know. And then
It's been dark during construction, which has been sad. We've been under construction for 3 years. So the auditorium has been dark for a while, but we're looking forward to bringing more shows back and getting people in those seats again, making those memories.
I'm very excited too. Okay, so that is Bone Student Center. I hope you have your walking shoes on because we are now walking just over a little across the way. We're gonna go dilly doo dilly doo dilly doo. That's for you.
Over the bridge that was dedicated by the class in 1981.
Then we gotta go back across the bridge because we're going to Milner first.
We're going to Milner first?
Milner
Okay.
first.
So not quite to the bridge yet.
We're looking at the bridge, but we're not there yet. So we are next door at Milner Library. So Milner Library, this is obviously my love, my home. This is where the university archives. We actually are not located in Milner Library, but this is our parent institution. We are part of Milner Library. The current Milner Library building that you see on your screen, this is the 5th home of the university library. So the university library moved all over campus over time. The first place was Old Main, which we're going to get to here pretty soon, a building that no longer exists. It then went to Cook Hall, which we will also get to. It then moved to North Hall, a building that has since been demolished. It then went to what we know now as Williams Hall. That used to be Milner, and that was called Milner for many, many years when it first opened in the 1940s, early 1940s. That building was Milner. Then we built the building that we have now that we are currently in, that is Milner, and Old Milner is now known as Williams Hall.
Yeah.
Go
It's
for it.
changed quite a bit. It's changed quite a bit over the years, just because being in a library has changed. I can remember going through the card catalogs and not being able to have anything to drink, and you had to be all quiet. And now there's a coffee shop, and they can get coffee in the coffee shop, walk around. Obviously, they do a lot with computers instead of the card catalog. It's such a different way of learning for them. They have a lot of resources there, though. It's still the place to go when you need things. They were doing something a little while ago that they had paper in the books, so that if you used a book, you were supposed to let that paper come out because they were trying to decide which books had been used and things. I thought that was very interesting. And there's a gorgeous Ange Milner display on the first floor that is very special.
That's right. It's a good point. For those of you that don't know, Angeline Vernon Milner is the namesake of the library. She's our first librarian at Illinois State Normal University when we were ISNU and founded as ISNU. She was hired in 1890 by our third president, Edwin Hewitt, to bring 5 different libraries, little mini libraries around the campus together and create the university library. And she's been the namesake of the library since we built the first Old Milner, if you will. Back in the early 1940s. So that's Milner. Let's see. So the next one, now we're going across the bridge, Barb. We are
Across
going.
the bridge.
So put your minds in. You're in between Bone and Milner. We are going across the bridge. Here we go.
The thing to remember as you're walking around campus is to read those plaques. Because the words on the bridge were dedicated by my class, and I did not know that till I came back here to work. And I was reading, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's us. Shocker.
I know those people on the bridge.
Exactly.
So if you go across the bridge, so kind of put yourselves in the space right now. You're going across the bridge, and you're now walking between Felmy and Schrader, and you're going towards where the flag is, right approximately where Moulton and the end of Felmy and Edwards Hall, in that area. This building that you see in this picture right here, that was Old Main. And that footprint of Old Main lived right when you walk over the bridge into that space. Old Main was the first building on campus. It started construction in 1857 when we were founded. And here you can see the town of Normal in that picture. even though we started in 1857, we didn't have this building to start with. We were having our classes, we had our classes rather in downtown Bloomington in Majors Hall, which that's long gone. The garage, the parking garage on Front Street is approximately where that building used to be. Old Main, the foundation was poured, a time capsule was put in, the building started to see some life in 1857, and then the panic of 1857
Oh, how
hit.
cool is that?
Isn't this a great photo? The panic of 1857 hit, and all of that material that was sitting outside sat in the elements as the building sat unconstructed. They didn't have the money to continue construction on the building. You didn't have pressure treated wood. You didn't go down to Lowe's to go buy your wood to build a building. So that material sat out in the elements for a year. And then the following year, Old Main was constructed. So we talk about this a little bit later. Old Main was, even though it's surprising that the building lasted over 100 years, 101 years to be exact, that it stood as long as it did. It did see some major cosmetic changes, including the loss of the bell tower and the loss of the top floor. But it did over time see some changes, but it lasted over 100 years as our first campus building.
The thing to remember, it was the only building for Illinois State for 30 years. It was the only building we had, so everything was enclosed there. But also that technically we weren't built in Normal, we were built in North Bloomington. So as those little houses that you saw growing up, the faculty and things started to try and build around the campus so that they didn't have to, ride the little horse or walk from Bloomington. So gradually Normal was built. We're actually older than the town of Normal. But the interesting thing, the faculty could go ahead and build a house, but they had to agree to house at least 12 to 15 students in their house with them, the beginning of residential life. And they also, the president had 22 students living with him in their house. So you went home with your faculty, which is such a fabulous idea and sounded like fun, I'm sure. Famous quote from President Edwards, because they were either in the library or studying or in class. Woe be unto ye who is found playing euchre in the bell tower. So they were very, very strict about you came at 8, you didn't leave until 4:30, you were in class or you were in the library. With a light bulb that was deemed the best light for teaching and a lamp. And then they had the heat at the temperature deemed best for learning in their homes. So it was all very cut and dry and strict, focused on learning.
It was a job. It was a job. You
Exactly.
showed up and you worked more than 8 to 5. You oftentimes worked for a couple of days straight for your classes, for sure.
Interesting side point, because there was just that building in the quad, each student was responsible for grooming, shall we say, their own little plot of land on the quad. So you were responsible for keeping that little place of land clean and tidy and mowed. And the live-in caretaker had a cow, and his milk cow, as it said, his milk cow used to graze happily on the lawn behind the building while he was doing that. And he was of German descent and apparently liked to cook sauerkraut and sausage. And the students would complain about the smell coming from his live-in apartment all the way through Old Main when he was making all of his little strange concoctions for dinner. But they had milk because of the cow.
And before we walk away from Old Main, I just kind of want to put in context where we are. So if we are on the quad and we are standing near the flagpole, say a little past the flagpole and looking back towards Bone Student Center and Milner Library, over to the right of this photo, that is Moulton Hall. So that is Moulton at this time. This is the student laboratory. This is the lab school. And then we had a connecting bridge. And then over on the left side of Old Main is another connecting bridge that connected students over to Edwards. So that's where we're headed next. All right, I hope you're ready.
Oh, here we go. We're walking.
Walking to the next building. I'm sorry, I won't sing. So we are now at Edwards Hall, which is now the home of Mennonite College of Nursing. But when Edwards was first constructed and first opened, it was the Manual Arts Building. So the idea behind this building when it was constructed and opened in 1909 was to give students hands-on training rather than teaching a student how to teach, say, math or how to teach English. these students would learn how to teach with their hands, how to do woodworking, how to teach woodworking, how to teach basket weaving, how to teach bookbinding was a popular subject and a popular course that was taught in the Manual Arts Building. Some of the photos that are going to float through here in a second will show some of those spaces that students would enter into, and it would be a laboratory setting. Here's one of them right now. Where they would come in and they would learn this hands-on practice from a faculty member who would teach them this practice. So not only are they learning a hands-on skill, but they are also learning how to teach this hands-on skill to others.
Nice. As an undergrad in the late 70s, I spent a lot of time in Edwards Hall at Capen Cinema so that we could see, there we go, there's Capen Auditorium and Capen Cinema. We would show movies on Friday and Saturday nights. And I know it was $1 when I was a student, and I was stunned when I came back 10 years later, it was still $1. We had a lot of fun there, but the students prior to us in history, the students had to gather there every morning with the president for their morning exercises, which I was interested to find out that it wasn't like, exercise. It was like reciting words and poetry and what have you. And there was a big organ that, oh golly gee whiz, who was it? Was it Edwards? Was it President Edwards who built the organ? The students would come in and he'd always be in there building the organ. I think it was President Edwards who was always building the organ, and they used it for years. It's been redone several times. It is now a very popular classroom because of the size of it. But a lot of fun things have happened in there over the years.
That's right. In fact, this photo is, this is President Felmley, so our 6th president of the university and our longest serving president. So this is Felmley. I want to say this is late 1920s, if I'm not mistaken, in Capen Auditorium, giving one of those morning, the university-wide morning sessions. Everybody had to come in the auditorium, the university auditorium, which is what this was known as at the time, to sit down and have morning exercises. And usually Felmley or someone of a higher faculty level were leading those courses. But you can see the proscenium, the piece on the left that's part of the stage. It's all still there. It's still well preserved. Our facilities folks takes excellent care of that facility. And in fact, it was featured not too long ago in a Hulu, although I have reservations about it and I can answer a question, do a question answer at the end. It was recently in Mrs. America where they talked about the Friedan Schlafly debate. That happened on this stage, in Capen Auditorium. It was featured in that HBO series not too long ago.
Interesting. I often, several years ago, we hosted the Midwest Lesbian, Bisexual, Gay, Transgendered, Allied College Conference, and we had a drag show in Capen. And I was kind of thinking if the little ghosts of all the former presidents were there, if they would have joined in with our little drag show.
That space may have had a couple of funerals in its time. I mean, Ange Milner's funeral was held in that space as well. So
really,
yeah, President Felmley and Milner's funeral, several faculty members and presidents have had their funerals in that space as well. So you never know. There's no ghost in Williams. I'm going to say that now before anybody says, April, what about the ghost in Williams? There's no ghost in Williams. There might be one here.
Yes, there is. We disagree on this.
I know.
So sincerely.
I know.
Joe swears.
Speaking of ghosts, let's go. How about a student dormitory? They always have questionable, you never know. So we're just gonna go right next door. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm skipping a building. Let's space transport. I apologize, I'm skipping ahead.
Skipping a building?
Hold on, my computer, there it goes. It was stuck in the space transport. I apologize. There we go. We're not going to Phil yet. We're going to Cook Hall. So I apologize.
Yay.
Cook Hall had one of those, will Illinois ever build us types of histories, type of stories. This building started as early as our 2nd president. Speaking of dormitories, our 2nd president, was that?
Edwards?
Oh,
Holy cow.
Edwards. Yeah, this started as early as Edwards. Edwards really wanted to build a dormitory because we needed a dormitory. We had students, they needed a place to stay, and they're just, even though faculty were providing those boarding room spaces, there just wasn't a lot of space. So Edwards started by trying to get funding for a building to be a dormitory. It ended up becoming a gym, which is what you see here. And it wasn't approved until really late Hewitt and then into John Cook, our fourth president, and then was constructed during our fourth president's tenure. Here, this is what would eventually be Milner Library. This is the university library in this photo in Cook Hall. So the second location, so the first location was in Old Main. The second location's here in Cook Hall. It would eventually go to a building called North Hall, which we no longer have. And then, of course, it went to what is now Williams, and then it goes to its current Milner space. Of course, I had to throw some extra library photos in here. So you see students, I'd like to point out the clothing of some of the students and what they're wearing and how they're studying. I think it's fascinating, quite frankly, in these photos. But this is what the library looked like at Cook Hall at that time.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add for that one, Barb?
Sure. This building is named after President Cook, and we went from our no playing euchre in the bell tower to President Cook, whose famous quote was, when the students would act up or do anything crazy, he went, "It's like the chicken pox, they'll get over it." He was a totally different attitude type of a guy. It looks like he was so much fun. They had a different style of leadership. If you pay attention to the other universities in the state, this was built under Governor Altgeld's reign, as it were, in the state of Illinois. And he had a passion for the German castles of the Rhineland, so he only okayed funding for castles. So if you go to all the different states institutions, there's a castle at all the different universities, except for Northern, because theirs fell down. But they are mostly called Altgeld Hall, but we named ours after President Cook because he was such a great guy. There is an art institution, an art installation in front of Cook Hall that's been there that is supposed to represent a knight guarding his castle. And the spires are kind of like touched by flames and charcoal, and the knight is standing guard protecting his castle. So we like to think that he is protecting all of our people at Cook Hall today as the students go from the School of Music go throughout Cook Hall. It's interesting because now you walk by and you hear students playing on the quad, a little quartet of this or a little quintet of that, and it makes it really, really special.
Right, and John Cook, our fourth president, he was also a very quick history about the way that we taught at the university. He taught something, or was a supporter of a pedagogy known as Herbartianism. Herbartianism was something founded in Germany in the 1830s by a gentleman named Johann Herbart, which
I read that and totally didn't get it.
What's that?
I read that and totally didn't get it.
Oh, you did?
I'm glad you're explaining.
This is my job, Barb. This is what I do.
Exactly. I've always cruised over that.
That's what I do. So Herbartianism is this idea that you are teaching a student how to be a moral citizen through the type of education that you're giving them. So for example, if you are teaching them a history lesson and you want them to eventually be this moral citizen, then maybe teach them history with a story of someone like Charles Hovey, who signed up for the Civil War with the students who graduated from the university first. He encouraged the students to get their certificates before they signed up for the war, and they all signed up together. That's a real powerful, heroic type of story. Tell this story to the students to both teach them about the Civil War and about this man, but also the idea that they will in turn want to emulate him and be a moral citizen. And they use this morality through all of the subjects that are taught in secondary education. So we here at Illinois State Normal University was the first to teach Herbartianism in the United States in the late 1880s and the 1890s when Charles DeGarmo of DeGarmo Hall brought this back to the States. And John Cook was very supportive of this type of education, especially as president, and helped found what would eventually become the American Herbartian Five. We were the Herbartian hotbed of that pedagogy for many years, up until the 1920s, when Dewey eventually became the way that you taught in this country. But for a long time, we were the founders of Herbartianism, and that was the pedagogy used to teach students in the United States. And it was founded here at Illinois State Normal University.
Well, go us.
We're pretty special. We're pretty popular.
Yeah.
So
Great.
let's.
Random side note, one of my students, who shall remain nameless, back in the day, actually proposed to his now wife on the roof of Cook Hall. Yes, I'm not sure how they got there. He told me it was best I didn't know, and I believed him. But they got engaged on the top of Cook Hall.
I can't tell you how many times I've had a student say that to me. It's best if you don't know.
It's best if you don't know.
So maybe
I live in my own happy place,
maybe I do want to know.
and I like it here.
So let's trip over to the next building. Let's just trip through the tulips. Let's go to the next building. Oh gosh, why is it holding? It's being a real. There it is. Fell Hall.
Fell Hall, yay!
This is what I was getting. This is what I was jumping ahead for earlier. Fell Hall was the first dormitory built on campus. So remember, we're founded in 1857. We didn't get a dormitory of any kind until 1918. This was the building that our second president was fighting for, but we eventually got in later presidents. Here is a picture of the room that if you got a room, which by the way, it was a women's dormitory. So if you were a guy, nope, sorry, you got to go board with your faculty member, with your professor. Ladies, you got a room. So this room, you got 2 beds in a room, 2 desks, I think they got 2 dressers, and you got a couple of square meals a day, all for the low price of $6.50 a week. That is a bargain.
Oh, yeah.
By today's standards, this is a bargain. Here is the drawing room that you could go and relax in and study in when you were living in Fell Hall. Fell Hall also was built in 2 stages. So you had the first stage that was built in 1918 and opened in 1918, and then it got an extension into the 1950s. Oh, and I'm so glad this picture came up. It also was the home of the first cage, the cage. So prior to the 1940s, early 1940s, there was no real place on campus for students to go and really congregate and get a sandwich and talk about their classes. There wasn't a place like that. So the administration got together and said, you know, we'll have a little bit of money, we'll put it toward this eatery idea, a lunch counter, and we'll see how it goes. It probably isn't going to work, but we'll give it a try. It was incredibly successful, so successful that the cage lived through to the Bone Student Center when it moved from a couple different locations to the Bone Student Center. But its original home in that photo was in Fell Hall in the 1940s.
Nice. I know if you look at some of the old maps of the university, of the campus, it's interesting because people can't tell what a building is, because right now Fell Hall makes a C, kind of, sort of. But for a long time, it made a C missing that leg. It was just a third of a C. So they're like, well, what is that? It's like, oh, that's Cook Hall, or that's Fell Hall. Because it took them, like you say, it took them 90 years to actually finally finish the building. It housed the Navy V-12 program during the war. One of the programs that we had, it was brilliant, because all the men were getting drafted to go overseas, and we were trying to keep, President Fairchild, I believe, was trying to keep all of the university running. So he told the faculty, you know, if you want to get your PhD, now's the time. And they literally turned campus into a naval base, and there were signs, you know, naval personnel only and things. And the boys came several hundred at a time and would go through their officer training, which allowed Illinois State Normal University to keep our faculty employed, you know, the cooks cooking, the teachers teaching, the lawn guys lawning, so that we could keep going, because Fairchild knew after the war, when they came back, the GI Bill would come into effect, and we would need faculty, and he didn't want to lose all of our top-notch faculty. See, he really, I mean, it was an amazing way to take advantage of that situation and keep the university going. So I thought that was just very impressive. There's some cool pictures of the different classes too that are going through. And then the little barracks there off to the side are where a lot of the men slept, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, there actually was a fire in Fell Hall while the men were there. I believe it was in 42 or 43. There was a fire in the roof of Fell Hall. So they had to be temporarily relocated for a short bit of time. Some of the barracks were part of that. They were just relocated to different parts of the campus while that area was refurbished, was renovated. There's some blueprints here at Archives that shows that there was a fire and what they had to do to renovate that roof and to replace that roof when that roof caught fire during that time. And you remind me, a lot of the folks on this call may not know what the V12 is. So for those of you that don't know what a V12 is, during World War II, there's a couple of different V programs. There was a V4, there was a V6, and we had a V12. And these programs were federally sponsored, a military program that as a student, you could go and join the program, become a student at the university that was sponsoring whichever version of that program they had. You would get a degree and also get your, well, you weren't becoming an enlisted, you were becoming an officer while you were there. So not only did you graduate accelerated with a degree, but as soon as you got out, you were an officer and off to the war you went. Our V12 program here was involved heavily with aviation. So, which is, I think, just really cool because my family is very naval aviation. Almost my entire family at some point were naval aviation. I have some now that's currently in the Navy doing Navy aviation. So that connection is a real fun connection. Those students were learning out at the university farm how to take apart and rebuild aircraft engines. And that's what the farm was used for during the war. So these students were coming, getting their education, taking their English course, and then maybe the next day taking a course on how to disassemble and reassemble an aircraft engine out of the university farm.
That is brilliant. I really did.
Yeah, it's the V12 is a fun history. I would also encourage some of you that if you're interested in V12 history, we had an intern here, or we still have him here. We had an intern do a little mini exhibit on our Instagram page. If you follow Instagram, it's at ISU Archives on Instagram. He did a little bit of an Instagram takeover about a week or two ago where he talked about the Navy V12 program on our Instagram. So by all means, go check out what he did. It's really great work on his part talking about the V12 program.
Nice. If you come back to campus today,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
If somebody comes back to campus today, they'll notice that Fell Hall is no longer a residence hall. It was converted in 1989 to offices and houses some of the student services offices. I've given tours to like alums from back in the day that come back and want a tour, and the alumni office will ask me to take them on a tour, and they're always surprised. It's like, oh, we want to go there. I'm like, are you sure? Because it's not the same, you know, tough call. But it is.
It's a fireplace, but
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready for the next building? I think.
Here we go.
Hope y'all are getting tired from all this walking. It's a lot of walking that's going on.
Oh, well, we're really going around the hall here, aren't we?
We are. We're just. Well, so now we've cut across. We've gone from Fell. We kind of skipped the top. Now we're going across back over to what I promised earlier was Old Union. So Old Union is the first building that the university constructed and opened in 1956 to be the student union. So it was the student union at the time. I did a quick conversion on this because I honestly didn't know off the top of my head. So the students that were here at the time, they fundraised, here's a picture right here, where they raised $150,000 in cash to help supplement the bonds that Fairchild secured in order to build the student union. $150,000 converted today for inflation is about $1 million and a half dollars. Those students raised what is equivalent now to over $1 million to build this.
That's a lot of big sales.
It's right. That's a lot of cookies.
Wow.
So they absolutely raised a lot of money. And here's some groundbreaking photos. We have lots of groundbreaking photos. They took great pride in the space that they were constructing for students, by students, for students. that Fairchild helped secure the bonds to build this building. And here is, I love this picture. There was the lobby shop. So you can go in and get
Oh
yourself
my
a
gosh.
little pack of mints and maybe a notebook while you went next door to the cage and got yourself a sandwich and met up with your friends before you went over to your class. It's just the epitome of 1950s, 1960s student union. It really
I'll
is.
bet that's why we had the lobby shop in the New Bone Student Center.
Ding, ding,
Oh,
ding.
bet. Oh my gosh, it all comes together.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And there we have a
What
picture.
great picture of the cage.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you have
Um,
anything you want to throw in there, Barb?
The one, a couple things that the students had always wanted a place to gather like this. And they tried to find, they requested a space in Old Main, and the president at the time went and asked for permission, and they were basically turned down. That was when they agreed to build the library, but the student union would have to wait. So they came up with 3 rooms in the basement of Old Main that they were going to renovate and let the students use. And they were going to be perfect for club meetings, cards, and tea when they wanted to get together. The piano practice rooms are actually in Old Union still. They were there when I was an undergrad. That's where I had to go. I was a piano major, and that's where I had to go to practice. And they are actually still there. I was surprised. They're still there in soundproof rooms, which are just, they were creepy then and they're creepy now. It's like you get in and the door closes and it's like you're in a refrigerator because it goes, and it's scary, but very effective. You don't hear anything. You can walk through that. There's like 7 or 8 of them, and you walk through and you can see people playing their trombone and there's no sound coming out. But it's interesting. You have to walk through now. You have to walk through the piano rooms to get to AT, to get to the computer people.
Mhm.
Which
It is a little.
I didn't realize they were still there until I had a meeting over there, and I'm like, I literally was telling the person, this is where the pianos used to, be. They still are, apparently. Yeah. We tried during the renovation, we tried to locate that cage sign. It's a bird cage with the cage, and it is not to be found.
And before we go to the next
Here.
building, for anybody that's like, why the cage? Remember, we're the Redbirds. So
Yes.
it's a little weird though, because you think, why would you want to cage your mascot? I don't have a good answer for you. I get that question. Well,
We
then
get
why
it.
was it a cage? You're caging a bird, and don't you want to be free? It's a pretty picture.
Yes.
It's a pretty sign. It's a pretty picture. All right. I think we've got just a couple of more buildings. Do we have it in us? I think we can hoof it over. Let's
How far do we have to go?
What's that?
Ooh, Molten. That's a
Yeah,
hike.
we've got Molten. So for some of you, maybe there might be some of you on this call who recall having classes in this.
Oh my gosh, Jess, you are not.
We're gonna work in that building now. Who knows? I'm
Go
not
out
watching
and wait
that,
from
so-
a window. Go out and wait from one of the windows, you know.
Wait a minute, that's where I work. So this is Molten. Molten was built in opened in 1913, and it was the lab school for the university. So for some of you who don't, you hear normal and you don't know what that is. So we were at the start, Illinois State Normal University, and the normal part of the university is we were teaching people how to teach, and the state of Illinois needed those teachers to go out into the state and go educate students. So that's the university's purpose when it first opened. The normal part of that, there's the normal university, and then we had the lab school. We had the lab school portion of the university. That's where local students came. So if you were an elementary school student, a high school student, you were at Molten taking your secondary education classes and being taught by those students who were learning in the normal university. So it's a lab school because it was a lab for those students getting their normal education. They went in to learn these pedagogies and then went to the lab school and then use those pedagogies to teach those students to see what worked and what didn't work. So it was a lab school. At that lab school, we had the kindergarten, we had the elementary school, and we had the university. So U-High and Metcalf that we know and love today. Let's see, Metcalf moved out in 1957 to the building that it's in now, and University High School moved out in 1966. And now this building is home to the registrar, among other things, but it is an administration building. That's the purpose of the building today.
Interesting fun fact. We have always, from the time we opened, we've always had a form of teacher education placement. We didn't have the building, but there was, quote, a laboratory school within Old Main because we had it, because like she says, we were teaching teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And when it opened when the laboratory school part of Old Main opened in 1860, Mary Brooks was considered the principal, and that was quite cutting edge because she was a female. So we had a female principal, and that was just unheard of at the time. And we admitted students regardless of race, creed, or color, literally just right after the Civil War, because one of the little local African-American little girls wandered into the school where the little kids were and wanted to learn how to read. And the president said, we will teach any little girl who wants to learn how to read here. And he admitted her. And what you have to remember is any child right now who goes to Metcalf or U-High or even childcare, they have an Illinois State University ID card. Mm-hmm. So they are attending Illinois State. So by that little girl starting at Metcalf, it opened up the university to students of color. So word got out as people were leaving the South and moving north that we were accepting students of color here at Illinois State. So while other places were really dealing with reconstruction, we had moved on very quickly into that diversity aspect of it. Mm-hmm. A lot of little cutting edge things that we've done over the years.
And I'll quickly throw in before we go to our last building, because I do want to have time for some questions for everybody. The university very maybe quietly but famously did not collect any sort of demographic information on students that were going here except for maybe gender, due in large part to some of the politicians running who were in the state of Illinois and giving out funding for state institutions who did not like that we were teaching and being so diverse and admitting students of color. So when we get those requests at Archives for, can you give me a demographic breakdown from say 1930? We honestly can't. We just can't, because that data was not collected and does not exist for fear of the state not giving us that funding. So sort of by the way, we didn't start collecting really that information heavily until the latter part of the 20th century. But for those of you that are curious about that, we can give you other avenues to explore, but the university itself did not collect that information for a very long period of time. Okay, last building. I hope everybody has the energy left to do this. Here we go. All right.
It is close.
It's very close. I think we'll make it. I think we're gonna get there. All right. Felmley Hall. So Felmley is the last on our list. And for those of you that don't know, the name Felmley wasn't always attached to this building. Felmley actually used to be, where we have McCormick Gym, Felmley used to be Felmley Gym before it became Felmley Hall of Science in 1930. So McCormick Gym was first constructed during Felmley's time as president. Felmley was our president for 30 years, our longest serving president here at Illinois State and Normal University. There's a picture of him toward the back of this photo in Old Main, in fact. But I just want to throw a picture of him at his desk, always at his desk in Old Main. So Felmley served for 30 years. And then Felmley passed away in 1930. And he had been sick, but it was still kind of unexpected. So when he passed away, and he was a man of science, in fact, he taught the majority of the math classes, taught some of the science classes. He was the math and science guy that taught on campus and taught those courses. So when he passed away, this building was already under construction and very close to being opened and being available to students. So that building opened, and they decided to rename it to the David Felmley Hall of Science. You can see there down at the bottom. that they renamed it in his honor, took away the name of Family Gym and renamed it for McCormick, who was a gentleman who taught history and geography on campus and was an ISNU alum. So they named it for another faculty member, but David Family is now the namesake of Family Hall Science, and then McCormick Gym, we have McCormick Gym.
Yeah. He was much loved by the campus. He actually taught math and science for 10 years before he became president, which meant while he was president for 30, he was on campus for 40. So he was quite an institution here. And the students used to celebrate his birthday every year. The girls would dress in white dresses and they would march into his office and they would cross one here, one here, one here, one here. And they would put a red and then a white and then a red and then a white carnation on his desk for however many years old he was that year. And that's how they would celebrate his birthday every year. There's a charming picture of him, quite a bit older, blowing candles out on his cake with the students surrounding and blowing his candles out. It's precious. And he was very dedicated. His only little quirk, he was a fan of the simplified spelling. And like bread wasn't B-R-E-A-D, bread was just B-R-E-D, no wasteful A's hanging around. Well, the state of Illinois did not appreciate his love for simplified spelling. So his secretary, God love her, his secretary typed everything twice. Once in simplified spelling for him and once in, I had to say correct, but the usual way for the state legislatures and the people that they needed for meetings. But he was very much a proponent of that, but such a sweet guy. The campus really, it took him a long time to bounce back from that. They really did. Without Dean Schrader's leadership, I'm not sure they would have bounced back as well as they did for a while there.
I completely agree, especially into the next president who only lasted 3 years. And like, you want scandalous presidents, I can go on. I can do a whole separate presentation about scandalous presidents. Yeah. Brown was our 1930s president and had a whole slew of fun stories surrounding that guy. So he was
relation to the Brown Ballroom.
Not the Brown Ballroom. Nobody get that. That's not why the Brown Ballroom is named the Brown Ballroom. A lovely alumni for that, for the Brown Ballroom. Brown, the president. That's a whole separate. I'm happy to talk about that later date. But right, I agree. Yeah, Schrader. So I think we've come full circle and we've come to the end. So if any of you, here's our quick, I shouldn't have put, we're teleporting to our information. So if you have any questions, there's our email address for Barb and myself. Please, always, anytime, feel free. We're always happy to answer questions. We love to talk about university history. This is what we live and breathe for. So by all means, drop us a line and I'll stop sharing my screen. And Stephanie, we're happy to answer questions.
It's just been a joy. I absolutely love listening to the two of you talk about ISU history. I'm such an ISU history and traditions buff. I'm a nerd about it, and I really discovered it. And talking to Barb way back when I first started at ISU, and I believe your thesis was surrounding historical information about Illinois State University, and that's how I discovered you and have brought you in and April in as a speaker for many reunions and events. So thank you so much. We have a couple questions. We just have a few minutes, but we do have questions in the Q&A. Joshua would like to know, when did they renovate Cook Hall from a gym to what it is today? And also, is it true there was a swimming pool in the basement?
You want to start, Barb? I'm going to try to get an exact date.
Oh, okay. Well, it didn't go directly from a gym to the School of Music. It went from like the gym to library to TV 10 to
GLT was in there too, right?
GLT was in there, and then because it didn't become the School of Music until like the 90s, like the 1990s. I remember I kind of wanted to see him take the pianos across the quad, but I missed it.
I'm gonna say that, Joshua, I think they're right. I think it was late. It's not on the top of my head, but I'm gonna plug my book. You can see it. I wrote a book about this. It's like one of those little Arcadia quick histories. And I'm almost positive I talked a little bit about that in there. You can go to Archives homepage. If you go to the library website, library.illinoisstate.edu, and go to the Joanne Rayfield Archives website, we have links to the book there, and I'll get those emails
Really?
directly, and we'll even be happy. I can sign it and mail it to you if you guys want a book. But I'm pretty sure I talked a little bit about that in the book.
I will include that link into tomorrow. You will receive a thank you for attending along with a survey and a copy of this recording, and I'll include the link to April's book because it's super interesting. One of our attendees say that she arrived to campus in 1988 and it was school music then. So it's true. Was there a swimming pool in Cook Hall?
I've never seen pictures.
It was always in McCormick, right?
Yeah, I've never seen pictures of a swimming pool in Cook Hall. So I hear this all the time. I've got to be honest, I've never spent time to go verify this, but we have lots of pictures and I've not seen pictures of a swimming pool in Cook Hall.
Yeah, I think that there was one in McCormick, and now there's of course one in
Fitness Center.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got Norris Porter on the call. Hi, Norris.
Norris.
Long-time Redbird friend and used to be one of our colleagues, but huge supporter of ISU. So thanks for being here, Norris. He has two questions. First, who was the architect for DeGarmo Hall?
Oh my Lord.
God,
Norris.
I have to look at the blueprints. I have blueprints. I can look at those blueprints and tell you and email you, which I owe you an email anyway. I know you emailed me. I'm making a note to myself to look that answer up for you, and I will let you know.
You mentioned this, but it was built in the 70s, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's total 70s building, right? Even had has an atrium in the middle. Like that's so 70s. The 70s.
It's such a 70s. And I've got photos of it with the bell bottoms and the hair and the shirts. Yeah. It's so 70s.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, his last question. Let's see if he can give you a double stump here. When were the Lincoln and Fell gates to campus finished?
So those were, Barb, you look like you were going to say something. Do you want me to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Again, I have to go verify the dates. Those were two separate gates. I know that was late 1800s, early 1900s. I don't have the dates available, but definitely two separate gates that were finished at two separate times. And they have changed, they've evolved over time. We have photos of them kind of just being these street entrance gates. And in fact, I've got this great photo of a Model T kind of sitting next to what's supposed to be, I believe it's the Lincoln Gate. This Model T just kind of sitting there waiting to take the road to go in front of Old Main. But we have lots of photos of that and how they've changed over time. So I want to say that they were, and they've always kind of been a thing with the campus, but finished to what we know them as now, I'd have to go get the date for that because they've changed dramatically over time.
Right.
Yeah, they did a renovation on them since I've been here, but I know that's not really narrowing it down a whole lot. But yeah, it's been since I've been here when they planted the roses and all that.
Right.
Ones, yeah.
Y'all, those are some hard questions. I'll tell you what, I was expecting someone to be like,
I think I answered this correctly, but I don't want to give anybody the wrong answer because I was answering. We had lots of questions, but there were many that I, because of my training from you two, I was able to answer. But the 860 after Old Main in those pictures, in like I guess it would be like the cornerstone or whatever. That was the year Old Main was finished, correct?
Yes. Yay!
So
that's correct. Old Main was finished just in time for graduation. So, which is kind of fun and ironic because they never took classes in that building, but they were, the paint was still wet. And then they said, here, have a diploma, let's do a graduation. So yeah, it was 1860 was when that building was officially opened.
Okay. Well, great. That is all of our questions. And we just much enjoyed having you two. And thank you, Redbirds, for taking time to join us for this event. And happy homecoming week. We've got a few more events left to do this week. We've got a pep rally tomorrow with athletics, and we have the president on that. So if you're interested in joining that, check out homecoming.illstu.edu. List of all of our events. We'd love to see you at more of those. Thank you. A reminder, I'm going to be sending a survey out, so take some time to fill that out. Alumni Engagement's constantly working on our virtual programming, so we want to know what you all want for us to plan for you moving forward. Have a great night, Redbirds.
Thank you. Happy homecoming.
You will get a copy of this recording. Just got a question. You will get a copy of this recording. Happy homecoming.
Thanks. Bye.